Hi again. I'm Arnie Abrams. So I want to show you where you can find the handouts for this presentation. This is my website, arnieabrams.net. And if you click on handouts, the handouts are mobile video in and out of the classroom, which is an outline of this presentation, and then an excerpt from one of my books on camera operation, and a PowerPoint of that, one on lighting. And then these are two 30-page chapters that are public domain on camera work projects for students to work with and lighting projects to work with. So that said, let's jump into our presentation. Well, we'll cross our fingers here. I think we're there. Okay. So the first question is, why even get involved in video? And because to some degree, it's the new language for kids. They're the YouTube generation. And we can capitalize on that interest that they have right now in video by using it in curricular applications. So another great thing that's happening right now is that cameras are available. And almost every kid seems to have a cell phone that can shoot video. And it's not going to be about producing professional video, it's being able to capture images. And by the way, a lot of what you're able to do with video is start with still images, import them into a video editing program, and still come up with a movie with it. And then the last thing is storytelling. So I'm a big proponent of the world of digital storytelling. And so video is kind of a subset of doing digital storytelling. So why mobile? As we mentioned before, it's always having a camera handy. And that's really been, I think, the revolution in the last couple of years of why we see everything now recorded, because everybody has a camera in their pocket. And you know, how often do you really go out to the closet, pull out a camcorder and start shooting? But something happens and you're there with your smartphone. Now, these type of cameras like the Flip or the Sony Bloggie are called mini camcorders or mobile camcorders. And there's some advantages that we'll talk about in just a minute here. The next thing is all of them keep talking about they have HD quality. And you need to really think about, do you need HD quality? Because it's basically just going to make the file much larger. And for most people, we're going to be watching it back on a computer screen that's not going to be HD anyways. So that may or may not be something that you have to have. One of the big things, though, is how easy is it to get that video into your computer to edit. And that's not always easy using a traditional camcorder. So one of the great things about these mini camcorders is this one has a USB plug right on the side. I just plug this in. The software just starts importing it. It's really easy. And if you've ever taught video production and you know students bring in videotapes or different memory cards that have some compressed video on it, it can be really difficult, and every camera is different on how to bring in that video. So that's a big part of this. And then also, how easy is it to share? We'll talk about that in a few minutes also. So what I think's happened now is YouTube has opened up to the world of even more lousy looking video. And so what our part we're going to do, and what I'm going to try to do here in the next few minutes, is teach you how to do better video, more professional video, beyond the world of just kind of point and shoot. So I also want you to think about, don't mistake activity for achievement. And that's true for everything you see at this whole conference. Just because the kids are busy and they're engaged and spend lots of hours on something doesn't necessarily mean it's educational. And so, I mean, there is something about the motivational factor and the fun factor, but we really want to keep this on track, that these are things we can integrate into the curriculum. So we're going to try and remember that all the way through this presentation. And the kids don't have to compare their videos to network television, okay? America does something better than anybody else in the world, which is television. Nobody else has the production values that we have here. So it doesn't have to be professionally done. This is going to be amateur, but the important part is what the message is in there. And then the appropriateness of the content. You need to have a discussion with your kids about what's appropriate to shoot and what's appropriate to show in the classroom. And so there's a lot of privacy issues, And I find that my college students do not have a very good filter about what they should be sharing sometimes. Sometimes they're illegal things, as you can imagine with college students. I want to make a point that you want to preview this stuff before they present it or publish it to the world. So there's two big trends going on in the world of video, which are kind of two ends of the spectrum. We're getting bigger, fancier, more high-definition television sets out there that we're watching things on. And at the same time, increasingly, we're watching it on computer screens. So let's talk a little bit about that. These HD, you know, it's nothing beats watching it on a great big HD TV with surround sound and so forth. I'm a DirecTV customer on satellite, and we've been blocked out from Fox for the last couple months because of contract things, which just happens to have the World Series on it, right? So last night they actually signed an agreement. It's amazing how these things suddenly get solved when there's a big event. But they told me at DirecTV, hey, just watch it on your computer. Well, I don't want to watch it on my computer on a website. I want to get the full HD experience there. And that's true also when you shoot video. If you're going to do something artistic or about nature, you want to really be able to see that quality there. So those are going to be huge files, and they're not going to be things that you're going to be typically sharing over the internet. On the other hand, especially kids are watching more and more video on small screens. So these can be much smaller files. They can share these on YouTube, Facebook, other places, online videos. And what we're seeing now is we're just seeing videos everywhere. It's amazing that when I go to a website and there's a help screen, increasingly they're help videos, you know, and so video is really becoming the language that we're seeing used. So that's a very good place to park your files and to share them. Okay, so let's start talking about some camera options. I was going to show you samples of video from each of these, but we've run out of time with that with our delay here. But I'll show you maybe one of them if we get a chance here. So your options here, I'll kind of go through these. First I'll look at the strengths and weaknesses, and then I'll tell you some options here. So the resolution, and the resolution is really almost a meaningless thing because 1080, you know, the high definition doesn't really tell the whole story. Ruggedness, that's a really important thing. Okay, what happens if the kid drops it, the camera? What happens if it gets moist, etc.? And so I'll show you some cameras that are shock-proof and waterproof. Think about if you had an iPhone and if you gave the kid the iPhone, you know, those things are notoriously not rugged. The ease of exporting to the computer, flexible editing and sharing. Some of these are creating files that are difficult to edit, and some of them have some built-in software that make the life really easy. Low light quality. Most cameras can shoot pretty good images when you're outside in bright sunlight, but when you come indoors or you're in a darker environment, that's where they get very grainy. And so the best cameras will be able to shoot even in low light. I think that's something good to look for in a camera. The sound, how good are they in capturing sound? Remember, sound is at least 50% of the product when you're creating video, and it's the most overlooked aspect of video. So some of them have some pretty good built-in microphones. One of the things to look for is an external mic jack. So this Sony Bloggie does not have any kind of external mic jack, and that's a big handicap to this, because I want to be able to plug in a microphone and put it right next to the person speaking. How much zoom does it have? You know, a full-featured video camera might have a 30-to-1 zoom, or a 50-to-1 zoom means you can zoom in 50 times optically, whereas an iPhone has a 4-to-1 zoom. So if you want to be shooting wildlife, for instance, or a sporting event, that zoom is probably not going to be enough.
Found any cameras that are good with the macro instead of zooming?
Almost all of the cameras are very good with macro, and the iPhone is amazingly great with macro focus.
The flip, because I do have a lot of flips, and I can't get closer than, I don't know, 2 feet or so with my flip.
Yeah, this Sony Bloggie can go within 4 inches. I mean,
really?
Yeah, it's really good on that. And now here's a big one, the length of the video storage. So if you want to be shooting, an hour speech and record that, your iPhone won't do that. Typically, it's going to run out of memory and storage space. And so that's where, like, the Sony Bloggie has built in 2 hours worth of video on it. And so that might be a thing if you're going to be taking a trip or you're going to be using it for an extended period of time, you want to have more storage on it. And, part of me when I put together this workshop was thinking, well, everybody's just going to use their iPhone or their smartphone. But you really start to see that for $100 or so, $100 to $200, these start to have a lot of application, especially for schools, because you don't really want to have a bunch of phones that you're sending kids out with. So this is the Flip, and it's much beloved, and it was amazing when they stopped making them, but Cisco just decided to go in a different aspect with their business. And I like the Sony Bloggies. There are several models to choose from. There's one that supposedly shoots 3D. There's Touch that has a touch screen, which is, it's kind of nice. The Duo has a front and a rear-facing lens on it, which is kind of nice because you can be able to shoot and have you as a reporter in the foreground while you're talking about what's going on behind you, and you can see that. They're all HD these days, and the new model is the Sony Bloggie Live. And what the Bloggie Live does, you could actually, while you're shooting, be sending this over Wi-Fi to other places. So, for instance, somebody here could be shooting their Sony Bloggie Live and sending that back to their classroom so they could be watching, basically doing teleconferencing with it. And if you don't have a good Wi-Fi connection, you can actually get your Bloggie Live to talk to your smartphone, and then your smartphone over 3G can be sending that signal out. So that's kind of cool when you think about, you could have a kid reporting live from so forth and so forth, like they're a news reporter with the Sony Bloggie Live. And that's $250. And they make a Sport, which is waterproof and shockproof. I usually burn out a camera about every year by getting it wet. So I really like the idea of having a camera that is waterproof and shockproof. And kids are going to drop cameras. That's just going to happen. So that's a good one. Unfortunately, there isn't one model that has all of those features there. Kodak makes a couple of good waterproof, shockproof cameras. And Samsung started making one also, a mini camcorder. So you also want to make sure that they have a USB connector so that you can plug directly into your computer. Cell phone cameras, we've talked a lot about that. A lot of schools will use iPod Touches, it works also. Tablets, I was just at a couple of sessions and they were talking about shooting video with their iPad. I always am amazed with people walking around shooting with their iPad at like Disneyland and so forth, but I just can't help it. It just looks so dorky holding that thing up. But it looks a lot more elegant when you're walking around with one of these and then you're able to do it. Hold that pose. And, the thing about on these, the bigger the lens, the more light they can gather. And so those tiny pinhole lenses, they do the best they can, but they're sure not going to compare to a real camera lens. So, in a pinch, they shoot amazingly good video, but I think, really for student use and for school use, it might be worth investing in, some of these that you can check out to the kids. So there's one more thing, right? You've got to have your laptop, you've got to have your iPad, your smartphone, and now you've got to have a mini camcorder too, right? Okay, digital still cameras. I, for 20 years, have preached, if you want to shoot still images, use a still camera, and if you want to shoot video, use video cameras. Then I saw the Canon 5D and the EOS 7D, and they are just unbelievable, these cameras. They have revolutionized the world of professional video. So you can get a $1,000 to $2,000 digital SLR that can shoot video that looks like it came off a $50,000 video camera. So a lot of professionals are now going to that. So let's see if I can show you a little bit of video from, I hope I'm not making a mistake here with this projector, that was shot with a the Canon. Nope, not there. There we go. Okay, so this is a little bit shot with a still video camera. You see, you get that depth of field, the background being out of focus. Like, looks like film.
Fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come fly with me.
Isn't that beautiful looking video? Okay. And I have an amazing large number of students that are buying those cameras now, college students that are using those. Those are really great to bring along on an extended trip. And you can use all different lenses. Real video cameras. I still like to shoot with a real video camera, you know, $200 to $400 range camera, and you'll get much better quality than you would with even these Bloggies or any of the mini DVs, because they have a full-size lens and they got a better zoom also. I also like the fact that I can take the memory card out when that's full and put in another memory card. So if I'm going to be gone or when I want to shoot 20 hours of video, and each student could have their own memory card. So real video cameras are still going to be around, I think, but again, it's something you have to pull out of the closet and actually make the effort to go out and use. And importing from those really can be difficult because they have to have their own software, basically. It's easy once you get it set up, but if you're working in a computer lab and kids are bringing in from 10 different types of cameras, there might be some issues there. Okay, so we're not... so here's the flip video. I'm not going to show you that, but I guess we should show you a little bit off of the Sony Bloggie if we can. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? So, you know, you can't really get a real good test because we're going through the projector, so it's only going to be as good as the projector, right? But when you really see it on a regular TV screen, it's amazingly good. And you can set this for web resolution to make real small files that are ready to be shared if you want to. They also can shoot at 60 frames per second, which is basically twice as many frames as normal, so that it looks almost like slow motion, or it looks like it's very, with a lot of detail on it. And one of the interesting things about all these cameras and smartphones is it makes it so easy to hold the camera sideways. But when you think about it, if you're going to be watching it back on a TV monitor, you probably want to put it in a horizontal position and not shoot in a vertical position. Otherwise, you're going to have those black bars on either side. So, you know, you don't even think about it. And the strange thing about this camera is it's just designed to be, the lens is at the top and the zoom is on the bottom. It's kind of awkward almost to be holding it horizontally. So it's interesting that they set that up, they tempted you with that. And this Bloggie, they can also shoot pretty good stills. Your iPhone can shoot decent video, although it tends to stutter, okay? When you start shooting more than a few seconds, you'll start to see that there's some stutter in the iPod and the iPhone videos. And certainly not really useful for more than a couple of minutes for a clip. You know, you can't shoot 10 minutes of one shot. And we showed you the Canon video already. Point and shoot digital still cameras can shoot kind of notoriously bad video and notoriously bad audio on them. But they're getting better. They're probably fine for computer resolution, but not on real monitors. Okay. So think about the included software. This is the Bloggie software. It brings in each pause of the camera as a separate clip. And then it makes it very easy to share it on Facebook, on YouTube, etc. by just drag and dropping the clips that you want. You can trim the clips. It's not a full-featured video editor, but you can trim them and put clips together. And then the real strong point is it's so easy to be able to share those. And you can also share them over Sony's private network where you just invite people. And so it doesn't have to go out to the world, which is good for schools. And of course, you can also save these as files that you want to share your own way. They could even be email attachments. Okay, to find reviews of cameras, CNET does a really good job of having a guide to camcorders. I'm not going to take you there now in the interest of time. And they also do camera reviews. So here you can see that when I did this screen capture, they had the Kodak PlaySport as the #1 mini camcorder, and the Sony Bloggie Touch as 2. I was looking at their one for Samsung, and they said the Samsung camera, they thought the resolution was so low that it wasn't any better than using a smartphone. Kodak is interesting because they make good cameras, but Kodak has now declared bankruptcy, so we don't know what the future is going to be of their cameras. So that might be another flip scenario. Okay, so let's talk about some tips about shooting and producing mobile videos, or videos in general, really for classroom, is keep it short, typically a 1 to 5 minute video. You know, you don't really want to have kids doing hour-long features. It's just going to take too much time and resources. Minimize motion and zooming. The more you move the camera and zoom, the more jitter there will be when you play it back on a computer. And so if you're able to put it on a tripod and kind of lock down those shots, things will look a lot better. Lots of light will make less interference there. And think about the sound. We'll talk about sound in just a minute. Before you start having students work on projects, show them some examples of successful projects. And then just do a little short operation. I like to kind of let them hold cameras in small groups, and we kind of walk them through the basic features of it, discuss what's appropriate to shoot, as we mentioned before. Assign projects. Don't just tell them to go out and have fun. They're going on assignment. Discuss the logistics. When they shoot pictures and video especially, they have to make sure that they get permission. So if they're in an airport, for instance, that might be some issues there. Asking people that they're going to have on camera, there's privacy issues, and so forth. And I like to have them have a production schedule so that they can keep on track, so that they're not all the day before the assignment due trying to get editing and finishing their projects using the same equipment. And the importance of scripting and planning. So I believe that this is really a language arts activity first and foremost, is that they are storytelling. And I want them to start by writing that story and then storyboarding it. And then they have to get approval for it, and then they start shooting. Not just go out and shoot some pictures and then try to write a script around it. So storyboard cards are just a simple way, they don't have to be fancy, of doing kind of a stick figure diagram of what they're going to be shooting, what the dialogue is going to be here, or the narration, and maybe any notes that you might want to put, like what location is this at, what people might be involved in, etc. And so when they go out with storyboard cards, it makes them really efficient to be able to work on their production and just get the shots they need. They can even separate out, these are the ones we've already shot, these are the ones we haven't shot. When they're planning, they can move those around. The more planning they can do off the computer, the better, because you're probably going to be using some software that might not be available on every computer. Okay, or if you don't want to go that way in the real world, you know, you can just do what Michael Rubin in his book, The Little Digital Video Book, talks about video sketches. It's basically just shoot some video, and then within an hour, do a rough edit down to 3 minutes, 1 more hour, maybe do some fancy transitions, etc., and output a digital file. So that's kind of the real world, is if you wanted to make a video about your trip to Napa Valley, you would shoot some video and then spend an hour editing something down and at least have something. And so I end up doing a lot of video shooting and never seem to get around to editing it. So that's what he calls video sketches. Okay, I like to have students work in pairs or trios on projects, and they take turns acting, shooting, researching, and editing, and then they have to write up a critique of their success on the project afterwards. So again, this is a lot of writing involved, another language arts activity, a research activity. I just went to a session, and he said that as far as he's concerned, by the time they get to the computer to start editing the video, 80% of the value has already been used up, because he's interested in them researching, writing, planning, and getting it to that stage, the educational output of it. Okay, so I have a PowerPoint presentation that you can download about how to shoot better video, holding the camera, about lighting, sound, etc. Not going to go into that now, but I will do a couple of quick things here for you. I always like to do 2 takes of the shot. And so just in case something doesn't look right or the acting's not right, I've got another take to work with. Sometimes I'll do 3 takes if there's a mistake, but any more than 3, it just gets too time-consuming to edit. So 2 or 3 takes usually, and you might even encourage them to do different angles. So move the camera around, and also reaction shots. A reaction shot is if somebody is talking, the reaction shot would be the other person looking on or the reporter. Start and finish on a static shot. That's kind of a tradition in the world of film, is that you have a static shot, the camera pans or zooms, and then it goes back to a static shot. It makes it, when you edit, it doesn't look like it's kind of a jump cut. Come in close. You watch professional television, you'll see there's so many close-ups. Camera in motion looks kind of professional, where the camera is moving around. I've seen kids be in a wheel, somebody's pushing them in a wheelchair to make the camera moving, or even one person's driving, the other one's doing the camera out the passenger window. I try to make sure that they're not shooting video while they're driving, right? And avoid shooting into the sun. POV shots are point of view. It's like the camera is your eyes. So you're walking down the hallway and around the corner. Use them a lot in horror movies, but it's also an effective way of teaching something, that you are the eyes of the person doing the action. Okay, so holding the camera, with these cameras, they're really kind of shaky, and you want to have pinkies out, right? So if you hold it like a traditional camera, like this one, I would be having my finger right over the lens here. So pinkies out, and kind of hold it. See if you can get steady, kind of your legs about shoulder height, with a little bit of bend to them. And slow movements, not these swish pans. Those are going to make the viewer dizzy afterwards. And don't overuse zoom. A tripod's really going to make a difference. Instead of having to bring a great big tripod, they make all kinds of little foldable tripods that will fit in your pocket or whatever. And even on a camera that doesn't have a tripod socket, like an iPhone or an iPod, they make an adapter so that you can kind of lock your camera in here. So I was talking about this one. The tripod socket on this camera is only on the bottom. So I can only put this on a tripod from here, unless I've got a tripod that will allow me to bend it like that. But, you know, that's a great investment for $15 or $30. Okay, so you want to get kids to understand the basic vocabulary of video, and the first thing is to start with the basic shots. So a CU is a close-up, an MS is a medium shot, kind of the waist up from the person, a long shot or an establishing shot. So if we were going to do a video about this Q conference, we would have the outside of the school or an aerial shot to show this is where we're at, and then we would cut away to somebody maybe speaking in a room. So that establishes where you're at. An M2S is kind of the basic interview shot, a medium 2 shot, 2 people standing side by side from the waist up. Over the shoulder, where you're looking over the shoulder of the reporter at the person, and then reaction shots. And then cutaways are where you have some other things that maybe the person's talking about that you can edit in. So they're talking about, you know, kids in the classroom, and then you've got a cutaway shot of a kid on a computer that you could edit in. Those are real useful in case you have a problem where you bumped the camera or you tripped on something or the lighting went rear. You can cut away to that shot and cover up some of those mistakes. And I have on my PowerPoint a link to a website that has not only examples of these, but video examples that you can look up of these. On lighting, I have another PowerPoint show about lighting. The more the better. Avoid backlit or shooting into the sun. If in doubt, go outside. And some of them have a built-in light that generally aren't too good. Working with sound is tricky because, again, if you can get that microphone near the person speaking, it will sound like it's got some presence to it. If the microphone's in the back of the room on the camera, it will sound real hollow. And you can always, when you listen to the local news, you can see when the reporter got there late, and it's hard to understand the audio of somebody speaking at a meeting because it's got all this echo. Whereas if they get there on time, they put a wireless mic, a lapel mic on them, and that they're able to have this presence to it. And so you can invest in a wireless mic or even a wired mic. Some cameras will allow you to do that and some won't, like this Bloggie doesn't have any external mic input. And they do make a bunch of adapters like you can see for the iPhone and the iPod that will work, even stereo mics. Another thing you can do is not worry about the sound and then later on record narration that's going to be voiceover. That's a real effective way, time saver for students to work with audio. And another thing is for recording your narration, you might just need to move to a different room to find a quiet place. It doesn't have to be a recording studio, but just move away from a refrigerator or the freeway noise or those kind of things. Okay, let the kids rehearse, especially if there's going to be some acting involved with it. They can sit at a table and read through the script out loud. All of these are things to kind of maximize the time that they're on the equipment so that they don't have to be using the equipment in rehearsal. The walkthrough, where they kind of walk through it, maybe a dress rehearsal, go out on location, maybe shoot some sample footage to see what the lighting and the sound is going to be a lot like. And when you assign projects, you might want to allow them in their production schedule to have a time where they can make up the shooting, just in case, where maybe that was raining that day or the footage didn't come out right or somebody didn't show up. So that's some decision you might need to make because things do happen in the world of video. So think about when you shoot the video that you're going to edit it. And that's where you might want to do 2 or 3 takes, as we mentioned before. You can put a slate, you even hold up a piece of paper that shows what scene it is. Probably don't need to do that, but shoot some different angles and cutaway and reaction shots. So this gives, when you go to edit, you've got more than just one take of one shot there. Okay, so before they start sitting at the computer to edit this, they should look at all the footage they've shot and make some notes about it. I like to use a 1, 2, or 3 stars. 3 stars means really good footage, 2 stars, 1 star, and then I might have an X, which means it's not usable at all. And so that really helps me, like looking at those takes, which one I'm going to use and which footage I'm not, saves all my editing time. And you might start by doing a rough edit, which is basically what you want to put down pretty quickly, and then later on coming back in here and fine-tuning it and adding transitions. And it's really important for kids to leave good enough alone because they get really into this. They have so much fun with it, and they want to get so professional with it that they spend hours and hours and hours adding more bells and whistles. So you need to be careful with that. Or they might hear one little blip in the background that nobody else would ever hear. Again, I mentioned voiceovers. Programs like iMovie allow you to just go in and record voice right when you're editing. Adding titles is really effective for educational projects. Adding special effects, be kind of wary of this. You can go overboard on special effects. But for iMovie, they sell a video effects package, #1, for 99 cents. It has like 50 special effects. So if you want to move beyond just the ones that come with iMovie, you can also buy some apps there that have other video effects. But so that you can make something look like a painting and all those kind of things that you've seen in iMovie and so forth. Add music and sound effects. Copyright's a whole nother issue. Generally, for what I think a classroom purpose is, we're going to be okay using almost any image as long as we give credit to where we got it from. if you're going to start submitting it to contests or sharing it in a wider avenue, then you might really want to think about copyright and by using clip art or stock images. Videos from the web can be very difficult to import, and the same from video from DVDs. So, you know, let's say they're doing a thing about in the future and they wanted to have a 3-second clip from Star Wars, and so they have the DVD of it and they want to put 3 seconds in there. You might end up spending a whole day figuring out how to import that, or you might have a kid that already knows how to do that. So that's what they call ripping, moving it off of one format into another. Graphics, as I mentioned before, with titles, charts, etc., maps. And a lot of times you can fix things when you go to edit. So if the video is too bright, you can typically dim it back down, or if it's too dark, you can lighten it. Those kind of things. You can do split screen, which is really cool. A lot of teachers like using green screen, where they have the kid in front of another, superimposed against another scene, so they look like they're on the Oregon Trail or something like that. So you can do those kind of things. You can enhance the audio, mix in things, transitions. So as I mentioned before, make sure that you preview the videos before they show it to class. It's really great to make a class DVD that they could take home, because they have a nice interface with each kid's video, and then they can watch it on a real TV set. They can give it to grandma. Grandma doesn't need to have a state-of-the-art computer and figure out how to run this video. She's probably got a DVD player that she can hit play on, right? Or maybe an employer or somebody you want to share your video with. So people can see DVDs. You might put it on a website or online video sites, and that's a whole nother discussion about websites that are appropriate. Increasingly now, kids are putting videos on their Facebook pages, on YouTube pages, but you might also think the more appropriate place would be SchoolTube or TeacherTube. There's also YouTube Education that is just appropriate stuff for the classroom. And Vimeo is a great place to put high-quality HD video that you can allow people to download those clips. So that's a great place to be able to share your real productions on. Some screenshots from Vimeo. So that one that you saw of the bird there, I downloaded that from Vimeo, that high quality HD video from Vimeo. I was just at a session about doing movie making, digital storytelling on an iPad, and the speaker there suggested that when you finish with your iMovie and you want to get it off the iPad to share it with somebody else, upload it to Vimeo, and then somebody on another computer, on a laptop or a desktop computer, could download it from Vimeo. So that's how you can move it off of a tablet. Okay, let's talk about some projects here. So really across the curriculum, start with a curricular assignment, and these also will include presentation skills, art, drama, and music skills. Okay, so I have written a book that has 75 digital video project lesson plans in it. And I'm going to show you 10 of these right now. This book's over at the Q bookstore if you want to take a look at it after the session. Okay, so why not let them do their final paper, their presentation, as a video? And again, it needs to be scripted and researched, and then you have to write a critique after it. But it's really cool to have the kids' presentations the last week of the semester where they're showing videos also. Live-in history interview. They go into the community and they interview someone, and they might show a scene in town, and they kind of bring local history to life. And, you know, interviewing skills are another great thing for kids to develop. Make a commercial. So kids are really skilled at understanding commercials. They've seen millions of commercials, literally millions of commercials. So it's great for them to kind of understand the tools that commercial persuasion works with, right? And once you make a commercial, you start to understand that whole world of marketing and advertising. They could also be public service announcements. They could be political ads. But these are great, and a great thing to do is to make sure that they're only 60 seconds long, so kids learn how to be able to fit something to exact time frame. Instead of, 40 seconds or 90 seconds, they've got to be an exact 60-second commercial, or especially good as a public service announcement. Do it yourself, so every picture tells a story. They have to put together a video on how to do something. So this one is like how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You could do things like, how to make coffee or something like that, how to change oil. But it gives kids practice in thinking sequentially. And so this is a real 21st century skill that they're basically putting together a video instruction manual. So it's one skill being able to read an instruction manual. It's even a better skill to be able to teach somebody how to do a skill. And these videos, if there may be classroom techniques, the teacher could keep these videos to show other students how to do things that they have to do in their classroom. Maybe a lab procedure in a science lab. Vocabulary builders, they study a word, maybe for young kids. This might be a 2nd or 3rd grade project, and then they have to do a video about that word or that term. Time-lapse photography. So there are ways that you can get your video camera to compress time. And you can do this with a still camera by putting it on a tripod and taking a picture like once a minute for an hour or something like that. You can do it on a video camera by shooting an hour and then taking the speed of it and speeding it up repeatedly. So you could take 10 minutes and speed that up into 10 times and make it a 1 minute, and then make that 1 minute into 20 seconds. So those are good for showing processes. Environmental issues, they might do something about pet adoption or littering or pollution in the community. Maybe even show it to a city council meeting. And whenever you go on a field trip, somebody should be shooting video or stills of it and then documenting that afterwards. Next time you do that field trip, you might introduce the field trip by showing that video, or maybe you won't even go on the field trip, you'll watch the video of it instead. They can interview an elder or someone in their family. I've seen a really great assignment where they shared their culture, and one teacher told me that in their classroom they had 20 different ethnic backgrounds the kids were in. And it was really eye-opening. A lot of the kids never even really knew about their ethnic background until they started interviewing their grandparents and sharing some of the souvenirs and so forth they have, the artifacts they had. Math is a tougher one, but they could do images of shapes, for instance, or angles, some of the processes in math. And afterwards, how are you going to grade these? Well, my advice is a lot of times you will not grade them, okay? It's not all about just doing graded assignments here. This is about learning, and also, to some degree, it's the motivation also. But it's real easy to develop some rubrics, and I have in my book a set of rubrics for videos, and there's like 4 or 5 things that you can give a 1 to 5 scale on, and then you can come up with a score. There are national educational technology standards with ISTE involving a lot of these skills, and subject area standards. And again, you want to favor the content of the video over the technique, unless it's a video production class, right? But what I'm really encouraging is if you're teaching science, you're able to let the kids do a video in the science class. It doesn't have to just be in those 20 kids that are taking video production class. So that kind of wraps it up. How did I do with time-wise here? I had a real 15-minute slow start there. I have some time for questions and comments, actually. And if you like one of my business cards are up here. I'm available for presentations and in service. Also, I have a few extra copies of a handout from before if you don't want to download it. Yeah, comments, questions? Nope, you've been sitting long enough? Okay, well, thanks for coming, and I'm sorry about the little delay, but we got through it okay. Thank you.